Thank you, Mr. President. Fellow Toastmasters, most honored guests. My name is Fred Sanchez, and I'm honored to be speaking tonight on this most auspicious occasion of having such quality guests here. I'll be speaking tonight on a subject that I've been practicing for the last few years. It's greatly impacted my life and those people that are closest to me. And that subject is viewing the world in a positive manner. I'll also be describing a path by which you can view your world in a different manner, should you so desire. Before I get into the details, I want to tell you a little story. I want to share a story about two little girls that are the granddaughters of a good friend of mine, Christina and Danielle. Christina is 7 years old and Danielle's 8 years old. And when you see these little girls and you meet them for the first time, you're taken in because they're beautiful, charming, well-dressed, well-spoken, polite, very energetic, positive little girls. They exude the idea of a positive lifestyle at that young age. But what you don't know is that they're products of a broken home. Their mom is 26 years old now. She has 4 children from 3 different husbands. Their father has spent most of their childhood either taking drugs, selling drugs, or in prison. He's currently spending 3 to 5 years in a California state penal institution someplace. And the reason I tell you this story is so that you can see where these little girls are and that woman are now. I met them about 4 years ago, and their life was in turmoil. The mom had just had her 4th child with her 3rd or 4th husband. I lose track myself. They were living 4 kids, the mom and the husband of the last child, in a 1-bedroom apartment. She had a very low-paying job. Now that's a tough way to start life out. It was especially tough on them because both of them, neither of them had a high school education. They got married, and it turns out that the man is a very loving, kind, and decent man, hardworking. 4 years later, she's now a licensed vocational nurse. She's a very dedicated person, wanting to become a registered nurse, working on that path. She's self-motivated, hardworking, loving, caring. And her 2 oldest daughters, Christina and Danielle, they, at their age, understand to a level that their biological father's plight with drugs and prison is not their fault. They recognize at some level that his lifestyle that he chose, the consequences have put him in prison. It's not their fault. Quite an insight for 7- and 8-year-olds. At the time I met them, I was looking for some positive changes in my life. Well, being an engineer, I started analyzing these people, wondering how could this woman change her life like that and not only have this positive attitude herself, but how did she give that to her children? So I did this little study, and I started looking at the traits that they exhibited and some of the patterns that got them to that point. And this is what I discovered, and I'll share those with you. First of all, I realized I needed to change the way that I viewed the world, the way that I thought. I had to have a paradigm shift. I had to rethink my values, my perceptions of the world. I had to realize that the entire planet did not have an agenda against Fred. Everybody was not after me. Another way to say that is I had to give up my cynical look on the world. The other thing that I had to do is I had to change my self-talk. Everybody on the freeway was not after Fred, although it felt like that at times. So what I did is I came up with this process that I call acceptance and avoidance. What I did is realize that if I went into a negative environment, I immediately looked at it and said, why am I here and do I have to stay here? And many times I could just choose to step out of it and let the negative world go by as I kept on my path. Unfortunately, the world's not a perfect place. So sometimes I have to stay in this negative environment. But what I chose to do is I chose to continue to be positive and maintain my attitude through the whole process. It was a character building, it's character building to be in that environment and be successful. The other thing that I discovered was that this tool that I call acknowledgement, and what that really means is I started catching people doing the right thing whenever I was in a negative or positive environment. And I found that even in negative environments, if I acknowledged someone doing a small task that was for the betterment of all of us, or it affected me personally, if I went to them and I said, thank you, or I pointed out how they were helping the group, 99.9% of the time, you'll get a shocked response, especially from a negative person, but they will acknowledge it and they will give you some positive feedback. Another thing that I found was that by practicing these fundamental steps, a paradigm shift, taking care of self-talk, practicing avoidance and acceptance, I discovered that that became the way that I do business. So I've internalized that particular way of life. Now, life isn't always good. So I hope these lessons, I hope this pathway is something that you can use. Sometimes life is tough, there is a lot of negativity. But the next time you're feeling down, things are tough for you, I want you to stop for a moment and I want you to remember two little girls, Christina and Danielle, and remember where they started from and where they are today. Mr. Toastmaster.